fin de siècle, and common themes today. Vincent van Gogh was a painter who was known to have suffered from mental instabilities like depression and seclusion, but also egomania, which appeared to lead to intellectual degeneration. These negative psychological states that Van Gogh struggled through may have had a combination of influences. For example, his lack of success in the sales of his paintings led him to financial problems. He was known to have a rocky relationship with at least one of his friends, Paul Gauguin. Also, he was known to drink absinthe, an alcoholic beverage known to have adverse effects on the brain. The painting Sorrowed Old Man at Eternity's Gate exemplifies a reaction to or coping with his mental state at the time. Color and impressionist qualities in the painting are reminiscent of the time of the painting's production. The single subject portrayed as a man is seated in a chair, his face is hidden by his fists and suggests a sense of defeat and loneliness. Loneliness and seclusion can be effects of mental degeneration and can lead to boredom, a very common hallmark of the fin de siècle. Van Gogh originally produced this image as a drawing in 1882, many years before the painting was made, but recreated the painting several times several years later before his alleged suicide. Having endured, as Judy Sund writes, a self-described aversion to death, many historians believe that his painting is one of many in the days leading up to the apparent suicide. Similar to Van Gogh, the work of contemporary artist Margarita Giordiadis portrays themes of depression and loneliness and solitude. According to reviewer Prue Gibson, one intense fixation which informs her work is that of death. In Pendulum, we may understand the lone subject as a female figure, and we view her out of context with regard to location, as she almost appears suspended in space. Paintings like Pendulum express a sense of defeat and perhaps reclusion. The morbid feelings evoked from Pendulum are the very feelings that Giordiadis experiences. Unable to escape depression after her father died, Giordiadis painted emotionally dark portraits with a dark palette for emphasis. Giordiadis says, quote, "Art captures life being lived at the moment," unquote, and so many moments in the life of this artist appear very grim. Just as many fellow contemporary artists who suffered, quote, "madness as their burden in contemporary society," according to Firat Wasiutinsky, Paul Gauguin was mentally unstable and a self-proclaimed savage. Again, the friendship he shared with Van Gogh was tumultuous, and many critics agree that a particularly stressful argument between them inspired Gauguin to create Jug in the Form of a Head self-portrait. It is believed that he created the sculpture to represent a union of himself and Van Gogh. The missing ear of the sculpture is said to represent a piece of ear that Van Gogh is believed to have removed himself while in distress from the argument that the two had had. The closed eyes of the depiction of Gauguin are indicative of a sorrow and also a sense of guilt for the difficult times between him and his friend. Gauguin also displayed a characteristic emotion of the time, that of self-pity. Giordiadis again represents a lone figure in a dark, empty space. Like the self-portrait of Gauguin, the eyes in Risking Enchantment are closed, the head tilts down and becomes lost in darkness, with a dark palette and ominous lighting which create dark shadows. Recurring themes are evoked, such as abandonment, solitude, and loneliness. Reflection of her father's death is again inspiration for this piece. Negative space in the portrait is used to express her sense of, quote, the presence of absence, and said, quote, "My father's death marked a death within me." Mary Cassatt portrayed women In the act of living the ordinary life, in society, or in the case of young mothers sewing, in private life, and often intimately with children. While her male counterparts depicted women in their paintings as merely decorative, Cassatt presented ordinary women, frequently in action and partaking in cultured activities, which gave the women the illusion of independence. Independence as well as a sense of intelligence that Cassatt portrays in this portrait represents neither innocence nor does it sexualize the woman. Cassatt's was not a common depiction of women in the arts of the time, although her paintings, like this one, were widely accepted. This painting even evokes the sense of boredom characteristic of the fin de siècle, which the young girl gazes at the viewer with no apparent reason. With line, shadow, fading figures, and multiple portraiture, Yolanda Rios depicts the rebirth of self in fading identity. Her portrait reflects issues of gender identity and the often disconcerting relationship and also the battle between desires and indifferences with regard to personal gender. She explores the depth and convolution of thought that some of those who choose a gender identity other than the one they were born with endure. Rios states, "I can only imagine what it feels like to be born with the wrong sex. I paint what I feel, what I see, and what I have been told by others." Furthermore, similar to artists in the turn of the 20th century, she conveys in the portrait a vicarious desire for transcendence. Rios keeps her focus on identity rather than sexuality. While questions about gender identity and gender roles are common today like they were in the turn of the 20th century, gender as a choice is relatively new in contemporary society.